Morning to those of you from the US. I see some faces I recognize there. Stephen, Doug, early morning. They say the early bird catches the worm. Good day to many of you on the screen, and good evening to a couple of you I see coming out of Australia and Singapore. I am so looking forward to speaking with you today. Brendan, Mayor, so nice to see you from Swan Electrical, a multi-location business challenge that you need to scale up and grow. Really interesting, very excited about speaking with you. Andrew Ajuda, Darby Devet, both of you in the telco space. Chris Bard, David Euster, and Dean Page. I see you all, and I know the freight and transport industry is going through some significant pain at the moment. Brendan, so nice to see someone from EdTech. Really was very, very interested to better understand your business about creating digital classrooms in the home. And we also have Leanne Dorrington on screen, who has a cashless payment specifically focused in the education sector. The two of you should get together. Eugene, I see you from Multi-Crop Seeds. Climate change is certainly working in your favor. And in fact, we might have a very interesting acquisition lined up for you, should you be interested. Kirsten Tricolatis, mobile data and comms. Honestly, I've got to tell you, one of the biggest challenges in today's world is how do you find and source new clients and new customers. I was really interested to learn about your business in preparation for our meeting today. Joseph Ludov, very nice to see you. Again, multi-location businesses right around the country. There's a lot of work to be done there, but specifically in Christian van Zyl, nice to see you. In fact, Christian, listen, with regard to labs, we've got such strong presence out of Chicago, and Chicago really is, let's call it pharma healthcare central for the United States. We can really link you up to some interesting channels and perhaps clients through there. Edgar from Top Steel. I saw the automated fiber laser. There is nothing more. It transfixes you when you see it work. Its accuracy in cutting precision steel is really exciting. I know it's an extremely expensive piece of plant and equipment. You've got to get it working 24/7, and it is ideal to create these chassis to support massive solar farms. Where is he? Where is he? Pascal Falan, based out of Dublin, operating out of Cape Town, New Delhi, Hamburg, Kabul. He is the man that you need to talk to. He is establishing 70 megawatt power plants, solar power plants, and the chassis that could be made using your plant and equipment to support his expansion of his projects is right on point. There are many, many others that I ought to mention. It's so nice to see you all. Carl, I looked at your website just for trees, and the journey of a tree from a seed all through its life cycle to what it becomes had me transfixed. It's an absolute pleasure having you all here. But before we begin, we should always begin with some absolute truths. We are all born and we will all die, and time waits for nobody. The sun rises and the sun sets. You cannot change anyone, but an absolute truth is you have 100% control over yourself. Another absolute truth is out of 10,000 businesses we surveyed, 88% said they want to grow. Absolute truth, less than 15% of them had a real plan to turn the talk of growth into the walk of growth. And of them, 95% of their employees, 95% of them had employees that were completely unaware of the company's growth strategy. 68% of the business functions, the things that make a business work, were misaligned to growth. And it's no wonder that only 5.4% of businesses started globally succeed in an exit, and 74% that look to succeed from one generation to the next fail to do so. What we notice is that business owners look to get it sorted. they went for help. They went to advisors who told them what to do, coaches to get their mindsets right, consultants that researched what they ought to do, an MBA that gave a good theory, accountants that looked at the month gone by and the years gone by, and success seminars to find great inspiration. But we further learned that 88% of them wanted growth as an outcome, not advice on how to grow. And of those that got good advice, only 5% were able to implement that advice and turn that investment into growth. My name is Pavlo Phitidis. I'm a co-founder of Aurik, investor in business, thankfully an author of 2 best-selling books. Thankfully to yourselves. Thank you so much for those of you who have supported those books. And I'm the current CEO of Aurik. And because time is money and PowerPoint presentations are boring, I'm rather going to take you on a journey with a commitment that I will have you out at 5 to the hour. The journey will begin on a story of origin, because the way we look at the future is informed by what we've done in the past. We will talk to the problems, the 9 significant problems we've identified that impede business growth and value. We will also talk to a solution around it. From there, we will quickly visit the future today, with understanding what the end game is, given that there are only 2 destinations for every business, a sale or closure. It's important to figure out what the future holds. From there, we'll talk to how we get it done and have gotten it done for over 2,800 companies. We will then go into 3 breakout rooms, 1 on growth, 1 on scale, 1 on exit. And for 10 minutes, we'll engage with each other, debating, sharing insights, considering different strategies to different challenges and problems. And then I will close up with an invitation to have you out at 5 minutes to the hour. So once upon a time, many, many years ago, I was born, absolute truth. And I was born to a family of entrepreneurs, 2 uncles and a father, all in private business. They worked extensively and for long hours, and they did the things right to provide for their families. But neither of them were able to exit and monetize their years of investment and risk. My first career was established in turnarounds, where I acquired 2 businesses for $1 apiece, taking on the debt of both those businesses, and the individuals I acquired it from were very similar to those of my parents and uncles. They had done well in their businesses, but were unable to exit for more than $1. I then spent a short period of time in mergers and acquisitions, frustrated by the fact that I had so many exciting businesses on my books, but was unable to support the acquisition and sale of many, for the simple reason that what business owners wanted and what the market was prepared to pay created a big gap. I was hauled from there into a family business and lived through the reality of a father who had built a fantastic business providing for his family, but had no plan to exit gracefully in a managed, organized fashion. After burning out for a period of time, I lived in the United States for just over 2 years and worked extensively on the West Coast around raising funding and supporting acquisitions. And through there, I got access to data, extensive data, to learn that 94.6% of businesses started failed to sell. I also took on a role as an external examiner for a leading MBA program, marking company valuation papers, to learn and understand the metrics of what makes a business exitable. We thought it was a problem worth solving, and we set to task to do so. Over a 9-year period, with my co-founder, we started, built, and sold 12 businesses. We had 2 failures, we had 2 listings on the stock exchange, 3 management buyouts, 5 sales to corporate entities. But what was most exciting is that the last handful of businesses took half the time and 1/3 of the cost to build to the same value as the first handful. And through that, we started to look at what we did through deliberate practice from business 1 all the way through to business 12, and we established a growth system that we have now had the privilege and benefit of supplying to over 2,800 businesses across 4 countries. The average compound growth rate in revenues achieved by our clients sits at 28.9%, profitability increases by 32.4%, and thankfully our clients like us. To get this done and to succeed, we needed to resolve the impediments to growth, and we found them in 3 areas. In leadership, the 3 main ones were around relevance. As a business owner, as a team of leaders in your business, how do you respond to a forever changing, increasingly noisy environment? COVID really upset the strategies of many businesses out there, and we saw well-established businesses pivoting out of panic into all sorts of directions, and many did not get through as a result of that. But in a world where the forces of technology, the forces of climate change, and more importantly, the forces of uncertain trade deals are creating an uncertain future, how do you maintain a single strategy so you can lead not only your own self, but that of your team in one direction? Time. Many business owners we've spoken to have complained they need more time to lead rather than do. Time is the most precious commodity we have. And we, no different to, I suppose, professionals in the sports arena, all have an economic prime, wherein which we have to make happen what we need to make happen to build magnificent businesses. How do you manufacture time to focus on leading? Control. Many of us started our businesses undercapitalized. Many of us are under pressure to deliver performance and results. How do you succeed responsibility? How do you delegate effectively so that it is done once and it's done with certainty and confidence, leaving you in control over the performance of the business, but not requiring you to be the source of control? When we talk about function, sales and marketing has become, without question of doubt, one of the biggest areas of challenge. Digital marketing itself is under enormous pressure. We have very, very few platforms. Those platforms are governed by algorithms on a pay-to-play basis. We're competing increasingly with more and more digital presences. There are over 480 billion active websites in the world. Think about your business. Think about your website. You are one of a large number. Consumers and customers are feeling oversold and overserviced. When it comes to operations, the true area of scale, how do we grow without chaos emerging? There's nothing more frustrating than chasing down exciting opportunities, be it new products, new clients, new deals, new markets, be it exporting, be it onboarding, new capital equipment. The excitement around that gets completely stored and disassembled when you aren't able to ensure a constant, reliable, predictable performance of your business. We call it organic growth, and we have an answer for it. And then team. To find the right people, to do the right thing at the right price all the time, to be motivated, to be committed, to share a greater vision is becoming harder and harder to achieve. People have never been better skilled and have never had access to more skills than they do at present. How do we get the culture fit right, as well as the function and performance elements in play too? When it comes to the future, where does growth come from? What type of growth should I be looking for? We see 2 types of growth that every business should have in play. One affects the top line and the other deepens the bottom line. And deepening the profit line is essential to not only fund your future growth, but to deepen the value of your business. Are you creating a job or have you built an asset? Recently, I spoke to a client that has a magnificent turnover. They're a large and real player in a commoditized industry. And yet, after 15, 20, 30 years of operation, still the majority of revenue vests in the hands of the co-founders who have deep relationships with their biggest clients. Is that an asset or is it a job? The big difference is that without you there, what do you have left? And then wealth. We have all read about the American dream. Do the right thing, work hard, stick to the knitting, and your business ought to become your greatest wealth generating revenue. Yet 94.6% of businesses started globally fail to sell. Resolving these problems was essential to us achieving what we are able to achieve with our clients. And we do so by working with you and your teams to build your business into what we call an asset of value. It is a structured, organized system of growth made up of 5 layers that sit one above the next, above the next. I'm going to take you very briefly through these layers. When it comes to positioning, that's what it feels like, right? We're all fishing in the same sea. We're all fishing in the same pond. We all have similar rods. We have similar reels. We have similar baits. It's extremely competitive out there, and getting customers' attention has become incredibly hard. Positioning is answered, or rather asked, through a question. What makes your business special in the eyes of your customers? By far, the majority of businesses we see have a very solid argument around their product or service. They have features, they have capabilities, they argue price, they argue service. And upon closer inspection, service is very much centered around relationships. All of those issues are absolutely valid in generating an income-driven business, but struggle when it comes to building a business independently of you. What we have seen win over the last 7 to 8 years are businesses that become truly, truly customer-centric. And a customer-centric business is not a business that has good incentives for the sales team, hence making the sales team affable to customers. A customer-centric business is one that understands its customers very differently. Through the product or service that you offer across any sector or industry, through that you should be able to solve a very particular problem. How the problem emerges, what the cost of the problem is, and where the problem exists in amongst an array of customers and clients is what the problem-solving entity is all about. Once you've understood what problem you solve and for who, understanding how they want to learn about you through marketing, engage you through a sales function, and be serviced through an operations fulfillment function, creates the experience that creates the loyalty and word of mouth that turns you from being product-centric into an expert customer-centric business. The narrower you go, the faster you grow. The narrower you go, the simpler the business becomes. And a simple business is a scalable business. Because once your positioning is clear in an asset of value, you then have to answer the next question. How do you achieve consistent, reliable experiences? In an asset of value, we look at functions operating in the business, marketing to generate leads, built into a system that achieves that. Sales to convert the leads, built into a system to achieve that. Operations to fulfill your promises, and administration to manage the experience. Systems in an asset of value are not technology systems. They're made up of 6 elements, activities in a sequence that can be measured. And through that, taught, supported with a job description and a remuneration package. To the extent that you can turn all the functions of your business into activities in a sequence that can be measured and that can be taught and supported through a job description and remuneration package, you're optimizing how you market to clients, how you sell to clients, and how you service to clients. And you're doing so mechanically. Once that's done, you then integrate the systems into one single growth system. Bear with me. I'm going to share a great story on it. Because once you have the system of delivery in place, you can, for the first time, build a team of purposeful people. This answers the question, how do you get the right people to do the right thing all the time? If your team is on board to operate the system sets that have been optimized and integrated to create a single experience for your clients or customers, defined in your positioning, you have the makings of two elements: organic growth and time. Time where you are not going to be doing the work, but time for you to focus on leading. I want to share a quick story with you. A client in general construction, 14 years established, came to us complaining about project-based revenues. Now, project-based revenues are interesting. You find it right across the construction industry. You find it extensively across the energy industry. You find it in the marketing industry. In fact, you find it in any service industry where you build a solution in some shape or form for a client or a customer. You build it, you supply it, payment is made, and then you wait for the next opportunity. Project-based revenues create very uncertain futures. They create terrible valuations, and they prevent planning. He complained about that. Furthermore, he suffered skill challenges, finding the right people to do the right thing at the right time. When you're involved in general construction, not knowing which next project you will be onboarding, suddenly requiring carpenters, or is it electricians, or might it be bricklayers, or might it be roofing specialists? It really created a tremendous amount of frustration. Supplier challenges. There's nothing more frustrating than not being able to depend on your suppliers in project-based, time-based revenue businesses. When you've employed that team of skilled artisans or skilled individuals or professionals to service your clients, and you don't have the raw material requirements that you need, they sit costing you, delaying the delivery of the project, and edging and inching away your profitability. We worked with this client to reposition as a niche loft room developer, moving away from generalized construction. Through this, in identifying lofts and specializing in loft development as an opportunity, he developed 3 designs for bedrooms, offices, and studios. Those designs allowed for a system of delivery to emerge, having a clear understanding on where to market and sell lofts, specifically bedrooms, offices, and studios. He understood what suppliers to onboard and established consistent engagement with suppliers. And most importantly, he had a very good understanding on what skill sets were needed. And because there was only one product being sold and one service being delivered, and because he had a growth system in place to market through property managers and estate agents, through banks that were looking to transfer homes that supply funding for the acquisition of new homes, he started to build up a tremendous amount of consistent, reliable loft opportunities that stabilized the team, stabilized his suppliers, and it compounded his marketing and sales. He stretched across through relationships into furnishing and decor, and that gave him a bigger share of the pie. Over a period of 24 months, annual revenues went from 2.8 million a year to 4.2 million, and most importantly, profit was increased by 9.2%. From a complicated, uncertain, project-based business, he emerged into a consistent, reliable, predictable business, deepening his value and creating time for himself to focus on what might lie ahead. With positioning in play, with the system of delivery following on, governing and delivering that positioning, and with a purposeful team empowering it and bringing it to life, time is released. And with that time released, you need to grow, because if you're not growing, you are dying. The question is, how do you grow both revenue and profits? The first three elements of an asset of value, positioning, a system of delivery, and a team, will generate organic growth for you. They will generate the organic growth, which is consistent, reliable, year-on-year pedestrian growth. And with the time that's released, it allows you to then focus on next level opportunities. It needs to be led by you as the business owner, because you have the deepest insight to the sector and industry you're in. You have the most comprehensive, holistic understanding of your business and the landscape you're playing into. In an asset of value, accelerated growth is where you identify new opportunities that do not interfere or disturb or disrupt your positioning, your system of delivery, and your team. I'll share a great example with you shortly. Because once you have growth in play and next level growth is coming on board, you want to then secure your value by ensuring that increasingly you as the leadership team or business owner make yourself increasingly redundant. Pursuing a situation where your business requires you only for 20 to 30% at a time is essential. It's essential to support ongoing next level growth, and it's essential to support an exit. Let me share a story with you. One of our earliest clients was a baker. And why do I talk about this baker? Because baking is interesting. It's both manufacturing, it's also in the service sector. And it's something we can all relate to. This particular baker was integrated across the baking sector, and he had in his pocket, as his silver bullet, the thing that set him apart, a fourth generation croissant recipe that came out of one of the original croissant bakers in France. He had built the business over 31 years and was looking to exit. He had failed to do so because the value he needed and the value the market was offering created a massive gap. At the same time, what he loved as a fourth generation baker had turned to hate. He was being driven by his team. He was being driven by customers. He was being driven by suppliers. And most of the time, he felt alone doing all the heavy lifting, despite the fact that this was a $5 million annual revenue business. He found himself constantly in the engine room of his business. And every time he looked for next level growth opportunities, they simply brought more complexity into play. Over a period of time, we worked with him to reposition and simplify the business into a business that would specialize, yes, with croissants, but facing customers that required 365 days onboarding of fresh baked goods. This took him into the hospitality sector, servicing many of the hotel groups out there, promising continental breakfasts. Through this, he built a system of delivery and learned that over the years, he'd been selling exclusively to the food and beverage manager, who was responsible for the quality of food brought into the hotels. He understood that the buying behavior in a hotel, hence the experience, needed to stretch beyond the food and beverage manager. And through that, he included finance, understanding what drove finance, what drove procurement, and what drove HR. Instead of marketing to one individual, creating a single experience into one industry, the hotel group sector, he then started to market right across 4 individual functions of his larger clients. And this socialized his name, his brand, his offering, his service. It also allowed him to position his service competitively for each of those functions themselves to benefit. He then started to dominate in hospitality. We got to a point where, as he grew and deepened his interest in the hospitality sector, we simplified the positioning. The system of delivery was solid and consistent. His team was confident operating it, and this released 70% of his time. His next level growth opportunity was into supermarkets. And in the supermarkets, we ensured that he maintained the same positioning. They needed 365 days onboarding of fresh baked goods. And they needed a very particular experience in securing him as a supplier. by not disrupting his original positioning in the hospitality sector and not upsetting the system of delivery and not disassembling his team to take on a new growth initiative, we saw this business grow from $4.8 million a year to over $50 million a year today in 14 short years. Profits increased by 24.3%, and the original valuation that he had been offered when we had first met him of $1.7 million is now moving towards the $80 million mark. Let's visit the future today. If we start with the end in mind, it means that we are not only building a business for ourselves to generate income, but surely we should be building a business that plays into a buyer's mindset. Because if we understand how a buyer behaves, it means that we're building a business that generates income growth, but one that will be built to be sold. Because, ladies and gentlemen, businesses are not simply bought unless they are built to be sold. Across the world, on average, across the industry, across sectors, businesses are valued more or less at a multiple of 2 times profit, plus or minus. It'll depend on the sector you're in and will vary, ever slightly up, ever slightly down. It'll also depend on the stage of your business's growth. Is it a 5-year business? Is it a 50-year business? But if we work on this basis, the buyer first looks to reduce the cost of the acquisition by negotiating with you and asking, what is it that makes your business special? I want you to remember the photograph I showed you earlier of 500 anglers all fishing in the same pond. If you're in laboratory performance and design, Christian, how many other players are there out there? To give you a sense, there are 480 billion active websites globally. How many of those compete with you? How many of those represent you in another shape or form, up the road, down the road, across a continent, in a completely different hemisphere? Unless you can define what makes you special in the eyes of your customers, and unless you can set yourself apart from how you compete, with who you compete, that buyer looks to reduce that multiple. The next question they ask is, how does it all work? What makes the business operate and function? In many ways, what they're looking to understand is, in acquiring the business, will it perform in the future the way it's performed in the past? For that, they look at your system of delivery. Next, they ask, who will do it? Because if I acquire your business today, it means tomorrow you're gone. Who will drive this ship? And for that, they look at your team to see how entrenched the team is, how motivated the team is, and how the team understands their role and function in the future as well as the present. Then they look for next level growth opportunities. If they can't see how to take the asset that you are building and grow it to its next level, what are they acquiring and why? And lastly, they ask the question, without you there, what will happen? To the extent that you can answer in the affirmative, that 2 multiple for each of these question sets has an additional multiple added to it. A business that began at a 2 multiple ends in and around a 7 multiple of profits. To the extent that you cannot demonstrate good answers around these questions, the multiple declines. It's for this reason, and this reason largely, that 94.6% of businesses started globally fail to sell. We need to build our businesses today for this day, 10, 20, 30 years in the future. And what you'll notice is that positioning, system of delivery, team, and growth, independence, what I refer to as value, take the shape of an asset of value. I want to pause there for a minute and just talk a little bit about some of my own history. I spent some time in the Navy, and it was fascinating because learning how to sail a ship, a real ship, not a boat, a big ship. Well, I thought this was a fairly big ship, a research vessel, was incredibly interesting. And ships and businesses have a lot in common. Every ship has a hull. The hull, which is the part that floats in the water, is designed for a very particular purpose and function. Some hulls are designed for speed, such as war vessels. Other hulls are designed to carry enormous loads, grain, commodities. Some are designed to carry enormous hotels on top, leisure cruises. But the hull is designed for purpose, as a business should be designed for a purpose. Every ship has an intent. When it leaves the safety of a port, where's it going to and why? How long will it take to get there? How do you resource the vessel with food, fuel, and water to make sure that you can sustain that journey? Every ship is operable, and it's operated by two things: crew, who have very particular locations in the ships and have a very good understanding of what they need to do, when they need to do, and how they need to do it. Not only do they understand their particular roles, but they understand the roles of the remaining team. So they work as one integrated operating capability. Every ship has an engine, and the engine sits below decks. And the engine's function is to propel that ship, to give it forward momentum. And every ship has a bridge. And on the bridge, which sits above decks, you have a 365-degree view around you. You have an enormous dashboard telling you how all the systems are functioning in the ship. And there you lead the direction of the ship. You navigate it to its destination. Businesses are no different. Because of this, I would like to take you on a journey sailing with us. Over a 24-month period, we work with business owners, from welcoming on board to building an asset of value. And the reason we do it over 24 months is because we have to build the businesses differently whilst we're operating our current businesses. We have to change and institute new habits and systems to move a business from where it is to the goals that you yourself set in the future that lies ahead. We begin our journey by doing diagnostics and a reconnaissance. We look at the ship inside out. We look at the teams inside out. And we look to what the future holds and possibly can hold for that particular ship. From there, we set the destination through goals. We reposition the ship and make sure the hull is created right. We then work in the engine room to ensure that we can get consistent, reliable forward propulsion, and then step up to the bridge to make sure we are getting to that destination in the shortest possible time. A lovely story, but practically, how does it work? It works by us configuring the asset of value growth system. We do this with Aurik accredited facilitators. 13 of these individuals, skilled across all the elements I've shared with you, work with our clients and their teams on this journey. They have seen many businesses globally, across many industries. They have worked across many different functions and systems, and they have seen and understood team dynamics. Often my facilitators say back to me, they get insights from your teams that you as a business owner seldom get from your own teams. Their function and role is to facilitate the configuration of the asset of value growth system, but at the same time, to make sure that that work is done not only by you, but especially your teams. I'll give you very good reasons why shortly. The first piece of work is doing the diagnostics. Every business exists. It has a set of circumstances. You yourselves as business owners have a very particular set of circumstances, and you have different intentions as to why you do what you do. You have different dreams and different aspirations. The systems that function in your business already are in play. The numbers you have tell a story. The dynamic of your teams tell a story too. Your strategy operates within the context of the world today, but it doesn't mean that that's the strategy that would take you to where you want to be in the future. The diagnostics look across strategy, systems, financials, and team to turn all of it into data And data brings everything down to the ground. That data gets used through a facilitated process by you and your leadership team with our facilitators to identify the future destination. Which port are you sailing to? 10 growth goals in strategy, in numbers, in systems, and personal growth goals. And every growth goal has to be measured, and it has to be broken up into steps so that month on month, we can be sure that we are navigating the ship alongside with you to the intended destination. From there, the next piece of work is centered around positioning. Of all the customers you know you can serve, across all the industries and sectors you know you can serve too, which are the top 2, 3, or 4 that you choose to become expert at solving problems in, understanding comprehensively the buying process in each of those sectors, the challenges around governance, regulations, the challenges around culture within those sectors, and what experience do you want to deliver based on how those sectors behave and buy. That defines the business. If you think about what brand is, a brand is a feeling, a brand is an experience. It's more than just the logo. Defining that experience within a particular sector pays enormous dividends because as you deepen into the sector, you have more reference clients in the sector, you have a deeper understanding of the challenges in the sector, you have a far deeper understanding of the risk and opportunity in the sector. Following on from diagnostics, setting the goals with positioning in play, we get to work immediately in the engine room. And in the engine room, we work with your team across the functions of the business. How will you generate new leads? How will you convert the leads? How will you fulfill those leads? How will you administer the leads to create that great experience? In all instances, we break everything up into activities, organized into sequences that can be measured. And crucially, it's done with your teams. To the extent that you involve your entire team, it means your sales and marketing team, they themselves contribute to the development of the activities in an organized sequence that will bring in new leads, that will convert leads. It means you are getting from the coalface what your team are experiencing and optimizing it to create one single marketing approach, one single sales conversion approach. It means because your teams are involved, that once it's built, as co-creators of those systems, they have been capacitated to operate those systems. There's no need for them to be trained on the systems. It means because they are co-creators of the systems, that they will be accountable for the measured outcomes. It's this and this alone that when working with Aurik, talk gets turned into walk immediately. And finally, from there, we step up onto the bridge with you. And on a monthly basis, as the system sets are built, measured up to show performance around goal attainment, we capture the data on the dashboard. And we use that to give you a visual representation of your engine room, the hull of the ship, its progress towards its destination. And through that, it allows you to understand risk and performance. At the same time, the dials that exist on this dashboard up on the bridge are owned by the team members who built the various systems. It is a tool that's used to support delegation, passing on the responsibility and functional operation of the business to increasingly release your time so we can focus on next level growth. I want to pause for a minute, and you're going to think I'm crazy. Earlier on, I said building a business is like sailing a ship, and it is. But operating a business is like driving a car. So I'd like to see in the chat, how do you rate yourselves as drivers? On a scale of 1 to 10, where 10 is fantastic and 1 is an accident every 5 minutes. How do you rate yourself? Anthony Stone, you're an 8. Wesley, you're a 10. I don't know what you do, Wesley, but you're in the wrong industry. Wow. Zunaid, a 6. Christian, a 7. Brian, a 6. We're doing well. We are doing very well. Colin, an 8. Sean, an 8. 6 on a bad day, Amanda. Yeah, we all have bad days, don't we? Johnny, we're sitting at a 4. Not good enough. Maloney, an 8. Lawrence, a 5. Chris, you must be an engineer, 5.5. Stefan, probably a 4. Yeah, well, we have a good sense of how we rate ourselves. Let's look at our lived experience as drivers. How does it actually work? On the vertical axis, we've got skill. On the horizontal axis, we've got time. And in the beginning, when someone was crazy enough to teach us how to drive, an uncle, an aunt, a brother, a sister, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a husband, a wife, a driving instructor, sitting next to us, letting us drive around the block or around the neighborhood, safely, quietly at first, and then increasingly learning how to handle traffic. We go through a very, very steep learning curve. And we learn to drive. And all of us remember a day, consciously or unconsciously, where we turn on and we said, I've got this. I've got this. I've got the stick shift. I've got the automatic. I can do this. Day in and day out, we drove and it was exciting. Day in and day out, we drove and we knew we could do it. So I'm going to ask you again now. How would you rate yourself as a driver against the Formula One world champion, Lewis Hamilton? On the chat, share with me your rating. How do you see it now? Oh gosh, the numbers are not looking good. So we've got some 2s, we've got some 4s, we've got some very, very bold ideas over here. Because here's the thing. If you think about the early years of learning to drive, and think about the more recent 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years, 35 years, there are quite a few age differences here. This is what it feels like. We're more or less plateaued. And if we're really going to be honest, who of you here, hands up, would like to get into the car with your grandfather or grandmother to take you on a 15, 20-mile journey? I don't see any hands going up. Don't you have faith in your forefathers and grandparents and grandmothers? And what's the reason for it? The reason for it is because we recognize over time that despite the fact that grandpa or grandma or ourselves has been driving for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years, our skill has maybe even declined. Because when we compare ourselves to a Formula One race driver, their learning curve climbs and climbs and climbs and continues to climb and climb and climb. What we recognize and realize is that in many cases, our driving skill declines. Think of a taxi driver or an Uber driver that you recently got into the car with, and you thought to yourself, gosh, how is it that with all the driving they do day in and day out, they almost killed me on the way to where I'm going? The gap over here, between where we might be in our driving skills and that of a Formula One race team is as a result of the fact that performance here is a team-driven effort. And those who look at the vehicle, who work on the chassis, those who work on the drivers, those who work on the tires, those who work on the track, are supported by a team of experts and coaches and facilitators, ensuring that they, as individuals within a cohesive collective team, are performing at an increasing level of skill, insight, and capability. Working with Aurik places you in a position where not only do we work with you, but we work with your broader team to turn that team into their best that they can be working together. I want to talk quickly 5 things that we will deliver should we work together. And it's important to understand this because all of us have an economic prime. You know, when our ideas are sharp, we have energy, we've got gas in the tank, our ambitions are progressive, aggressive, we know where we want to be and we want to be there yesterday. Capitalizing over that period in whilst we build our businesses is vital. Working with us, our fees are linked to your growth. We are not a bill you then leave you engagement. We don't provide advice and then step back. We don't provide mindset training and let you and hope that you just make it happen. We don't do the research and provide you with a big fat document and say, go for it now. Our fees are linked to your growth. Through us, we have 13 expert accredited facilitators working across the entire set of dynamics that make a business function in order to coordinate and integrate them into one cohesive growth system. And we do so not with you and you alone, but we do so across your team. So they too are engaged in the heavy lifting with a view to take ownership of those levers of growth. We do so with a dashboard that we craft and customize for you that gives you visual representation of all the activity sets in your business to understand what experience is being created for your clients and to see how each of those individual system sets are performing in their own right. We do so in a manner that allows your various teams to take accountability for those systems and to meet the output numbers that demonstrate whether a system is performing well or not functioning at all. And we do so using 27 points of data that we use to work with you to navigate towards attaining your goals. Through that, we have a keen focus on establishing organic growth in the early stage of working together so that time can be released for next level growth opportunities. This is important given the fact that our fees are linked to your growth. And we achieve this in a speedy fashion because we do it with your team and because it's co-created by your team and becomes accountable and owned by your team. It means as it's built, it's delivered. And then finally, working with us, we are guided by that future final destination, an asset of value, in which the 5 levers of valuation are baked in from day one, so that 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years from now, we can ensure that we are one of the 5.4% of businesses that are successfully sold. My ask to you is let's meet and see if we can have an impact. If we cannot have an impact, after a good discussion, we will tell you and we will walk away as friends. We cannot afford to work with you if we cannot have an impact for the simple reason that our fees are linked to your growth. If we can have an impact, we'll present you with a growth plan, a partnership proposal, including costs and a 24-month pathway to Aurik your business into an asset of value. We're a dynamic growth partner that has delivered consistently, historically, across 2,800 businesses. It's something to consider, and I'll invite you straight after we complete 10 minutes in breakout rooms. My undertaking to you is that my team and myself will answer all questions that are asked, and we'll do so in an email that follows on should we run out of time. The breakout rooms are set for 10 minutes. and we're going to be allocated into them now. Please, Pippa.